welcome to the newest episode of Quarterly Learnings. Justin, how we doing today?
Doing fan-freaking-tastic. We are done with COVID, right?
Yeah, COVID's over. The vaccine is here.
That's what I hear, at least.
If only it was that true and not extremely nuanced and premature to say that.
All right, I guess give me the real news then.
No, I'm happy. There's light at the end of the tunnel now, because basically Pfizer came out with some good news early this morning. A vaccine developed with their partner German BioNTech results showed that a 90% effective rate in preventing COVID-19, which is far above the FDA threshold of 50%. And what did it do? The stock market went absolutely ballistic in the morning. And everybody went out and danced in the streets unmasked. Just kidding on the second part. But how'd you hear about it this morning?
I woke up, looked at my, stock brokerage, and was very happy. I was, excited. And then slowly, I'm sure as everybody else, it kind of, dissipated. I ended up about even by the end of the day. But yeah, it was cool to see that. That triggered me, looking at the news of, hey, what the heck happened? And sure enough, see Pfizer all over the front page. So
I
yeah.
like how you inadvertently admitted to just getting triggered officially.
Yes, I did.
But yeah, no. So the caveat on it was that obviously it's not ready right now, but the phase 3 trial results were very good, and so now they're just waiting to see how the actual data of the trial, how it affected certain age groups, and how much they can make of it, because they're projecting anywhere between 15 and 25 million people could receive it by the end of 2020 and make 1.5 billion doses throughout 2021, which equates, you have to cut that in half because it's a 2-dose vaccine. So about 750 million people. So they've got some logistical problems to figure out. 25 million is less than the roughly 350 million that live in the US, as well as the roughly 7 billion that live in the world. So good news is there are other vaccine trials underway.
Moderna, right?
What?
I think Moderna is the second leading one, right?
Yes, but Moderna should be next. Johnson & Johnson has a single-dose one that they're a little later on, and it doesn't have to be stored at like negative 4,000 degrees Celsius as
I
well.
was about to say the other problem here is the storage and the transport is gonna be
Yeah,
rough.
it's going to be this supply chain nightmare of a generation. You think Amazon or Walmart during the holidays could be bad. I'm assuming getting the COVID vaccine distributed to all populations that need it.
So we start investing in Yeti again use a bunch of those coffins to transport this stuff.
Yeah, God, no.
Ryan's sitting here, thinking, "Oh yeah, get back on Yeti." This sounds like a good idea.
I know.
I shouldn't do him wrong like that. That's just rude.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's good news. It was uplifting news to also, I know the election's not officially over, but I mean, come on. Everyone that is neutral or whatever, a news outlet or accredited news source, I said, well, it was called bullshit on the certain legal challenges and unwillingness to accept results. But that's all we're going to say on that. But other than that, we do have an apparent new president-elect coming into office. So that's going to affect all types of businesses, China relations, Euro relations, other Asian relations, and African relations going across the board. I think it's been interesting to see which countries have congratulated Biden on his victory and which haven't, that are like waiting because they don't want to piss off the current administration. So,
right.
But anyway, back to vaccines. So yeah, I'll be curious to see. One thing I thought was interesting was that Pfizer was the only one of the major leading drug companies that didn't take any money from the federal government to make this vaccine. So that was I just thought an interesting caveat. I don't really have a point to be made on that. But that the others that did get federal contracts are all up next, and you have to bat at 90% or
Exactly.
everyone's going to want the other one.
Exactly. So they didn't take any of the federal the money up front, but I mean, if they're the one to go to, will they? Do you think they'll take federal
they're
grant
taking
to
the they're
pay
taking the
for this
sales
stuff?
orders. So the federal government's paying under warp speed, paying for all the doses of vaccines to inoculate every American. Whether you're an anti-vaxxer and don't take it or not, your tax dollars are paying for it, for a dose for every American. So, um, yeah, we'll see how the rest go. Um, but it's great news. It's kind of a relief. I know we're in the worst of COVID right now, and we're not projected to get any better in the meantime. But it's nice to know that they got it right. Or at least
There's a,
somebody got
there's
it
a
right.
light in the tunnel, like you said. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not out of the woods for a while, but we can see an end at least within a year. I mean, that's pretty safe, I would think.
Yeah. And I would assume a Biden presidency authorizes the Defense Production Act, and starts forcing other companies that have the infrastructure to be able to start making more and more doses of this vaccine if the FDA does give it the authorization that hopefully it needs.
Absolutely.
So, but going more towards the market. So Dow closed just under 900 points today after shooting up a lot more in the early morning. So it was a lot of the travel, leisure, airlines, cruise ships, and other quote unquote reopening stocks, that all rallied super hard today. Do we think this is going to continue going forward? We're not giving any stock tips, but just in terms of trends, talking about macro trends.
Hard to say. I want to say yes, but I think this might just be a short blip, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, and then more slow recovery, in my opinion. But even experts don't know this. Clearly, I don't know this either. What do you think?
I think once you get the more clear data on when X amount of percentage of Americans will be inoculated, and then you'll start. I do think as long as the disposable income is there, you're going to see people go gangbusters on doing activities they've been prohibited to do throughout largely over a year, or at that time will be over a year. So I think once you get more data on, okay, who's going to get the vaccine first, other than the healthcare workers and everybody who need and military who needs them first. I'm talking about after them, of who are going to be the lucky few that get the first rounds of vaccine and then just start living normal lives again. Um, so once I think we have more clarity on that, that's when you'll start seeing a lot of money in the market start flowing even more into. It's not to say these stocks can't keep going up, they absolutely can, but I think more of money going in and staying put, not just reacting, but more so making actual strategic decisions.
Nice. So from a small sample size of you and me, to judge this trend, and maybe some rational thought here. I'm not going to hold you to this. Vaccine comes out and it's gone past healthcare workers, the military. Do you think you're going to get it like right away, or are you going to wait a little bit?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get it because I it I don't have anything good to say on it, like scientific to say on this. Yes, I mean, if it's passed board amongst several government agencies and the data has been peer reviewed by scientists in the field that don't have a government affiliation or a profit to be made, I'm willing to. You have to trust science at some point, and I think also you're going to largely. I know the polls are not super favorable in a widespread taking of the vaccine. I just hope that that enough Americans are willing to take it up front, and then you're going to start to see the secondary followers giving in to their own selfish whims of when they want to go on and take a trip, but they can't because they haven't had a vaccine.
Right.
That they're going to go and do it. If everybody's reality is relative, and if half of your friends that have taken it and they're all fine, you're going to start to see other people take it that were wary at first.
For sure. I mean, I know you and I have some pretty close friends that are in the medical industry, and be forced to take it. They won't have a choice. So we'll get to see the results of that and be able to
Yeah,
trust
that's true.
their actual opinions. I trust their their takes and their research because they're in the thick of it. So
Yeah, some even before this news came out, when we saw the trials being paused for because somebody got sick and they weren't sure why or what it was, because they thought could be a extremely adverse reaction to the vaccine. I
right,
think you're seeing while it's also going to be the fastest vaccine in human history, it's also going to be the most closely watched and cautious vaccine in human history,
right.
which is almost oxymoronic to say, but it's a good thing. Both parts of that is good.
I agree. Well, that's all I got on it, man. This is great news. I'm excited.
I know, light at the end of the tunnel. Let's move on to some ballot initiatives. More importantly, some legalizations that have happened. Also, kicking it back to our throwback to Election Day. Let's kick it off with some legal pot ballot initiatives. So we now have Arizona, New Jersey, and South Dakota approving recreational marijuana for adults 21 and over, and Montana's measure is also likely to pass. We also had South Dakota a separate ballot that helps legalize medical marijuana, and even Mississippi, of all states, has approved medical cannabis. So, other than the fact that our home state of Texas has been just embarrassingly passed by South Dakota and Mississippi, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, not only that, yet to get it on to a vote. So that's great for us.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm very pro legalization, but that's just me.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
that
well, okay, I'll just kick it off with the fact it's a Schedule One narcotic, and in U.S. Pot industry, the U.S. pot industry, that's on a state by state basis, can't access federally regulated bank systems, so they have to operate in all cash businesses, and poses great risk to their security personnel as well as their cash flow and supply is ridiculous. It's a joke because these are laws written long ago, and they're not accurate, they're not correct, so they need to be changed.
yeah, exactly. It's very outdated, and I'm sure it'll be widespread across the country even more in the next coming years. But this is good step. I mean, how many are approved now for at least medical? It's in the 30s, right?
It's high. It's over 50% easy approved for
Yeah.
medical.
Yes, I mean we're on the right track. I think this is watched closely. Research has been done. Things are, like I said, getting less and less outdated for what legalization of marijuana actually means. Yet to be seen on some of the um, operating vehicles and stuff like that, and how to write those laws correctly. But yeah, no, I think this is overall a great thing, and something even we can capitalize, or businesses can capitalize on in each of these states, and move towards full legalization, not just medical.
Yeah, and not only businesses capitalizing on it, but states also getting the tax revenue. And also New Jersey has been described as kind of the gateway to the tri-state area. So now people are expecting New York and whatever the other state is,
We
Pennsylvania,
want to
to
rebrand that name, honestly.
to then be the next to fall, just like Indiana was projected when Illinois got it. So let's comment on your Zoom background today, which is the Oregon state flag. What can you want to tell us what happened in Oregon?
All drugs are legal. No, so they decriminalized minimal amounts of hard drugs. I think like up to an ounce, or is gram. I don't know. Metrics are hard for me. Um, of things like cocaine, heroin, um, mushroom, methamphetamine, everything really across the board. And it basically is subject to a small fine of up to $100, and you have to take a help me out here, not a rehab class, but essentially that, to get out of the ticket.
Yeah, it sounds
So
like it sounds like a Blue Mountain State party, honestly.
I'm really enjoying all the memes about it. I know it's blown out of proportion. And, these drugs are still illegal. but yeah, it's not going to put a bunch of people in, in a prison because they're carrying, small amounts of this, and they're trying to, get them help rather than, make them huge,
quote unquote pay.
and criminals, that are just clogging up the system.
Yeah,
Um,
and then you also had DC decriminalizing psychedelics as well, taking another step there.
so we're getting
So
our politicians on some mind
a
altering drugs.
lot of shrooms going around
Thought
Capitol
they were
Hill,
already
I guess.
there.
Yeah,
But
but
no,
yeah,
this is an interesting step. I think it's one of many that needs to happen. I I think most people that are educated understand what this really means, and this is not the gateway to just total legalization and anarchy, but this is a step in the right direction for our prison system, not just legalizing these drugs and decriminalizing them.
yeah, especially when you're talking about mandatory minimums, and mandatory minimums are proven to be racist on face value. So we're not going to get into mandatory minimums. We're talking more about the business side of it. So we'll get into more of what's next for pot. But let's we also got some legal sports gambling. Maryland, South Dakota again, and Louisiana have generally approved on ballot measures that they're now going to have sports gambling. We got 3 more states joining that
Like,
cult.
and Texas omitted from that.
Yet again, not
Shocker.
following the second most populous state, not doing something smart. Go figure. But yeah, so I think it's some good news for your popular sports gambling stocks though, like DraftKings, Penn National, IAC, and MGM. All of them. It's the trend is that I wrote about however many months ago, and we've talked about before, is starting to come more and more into fruition.
Yeah, get a little crystal ball there. No, I know.
It's
I know
not.
you and I like these stocks. They're fun to at least watch and keep an eye on, especially as things can get back to
Yeah, I
normal
mean,
and people
again,
get
it's more tax revenue for the states, and
exactly.
it it can be something that can be uh, done responsibly and can be regulated as well. So it's just like, how is it any different from alcohol sales?
Right. It does affect a lot of families, unfortunately. Like there's some truth to that, but yeah, it can be regulated. It can be safe. It can be done responsibly, and it's been proven that it has. So
Yeah.
I don't see why more states don't follow suit. I'm sure they will in the next 10, 12 years.
Yeah, plus it also keeps a lot of U.S. money in U.S. banks that are obviously more trusted than putting it on a Latvian or Argentinian or German website or something that you have no idea. You send your money out to go lay a bet down on the Patriots not covering against the Jets like
I
tonight.
have no idea what you're talking about, Pay. I don't abide by that stuff.
I didn't do that game, so allegedly. But anyway, so yeah, good news for obviously those types of companies. And then our last ballot measure we wanted to talk about was Prop 22 in California. Got a lot of news because it was widely publicized because Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, Postmates, and all your other gig economy app-based employers dropped $250 million roughly on advertising for people to vote for it, which is what they did in California. It passed, and what it does is it's targeted a California law called AB5 that was going to be forcing those companies to reclassify all the gig workers as company employees, pay them benefits, pay them minimum wage, things of that nature.
So,
And
Pay, before we just keep going, this sounds great, right? It sounds like a good thing on the surface.
that it passed and that they aren't going to classify them as employees, or it sounds good that they were going to pay them benefits and
Yeah, they're
living
going to pay them
wages.
benefits, right? Like it's great.
Well, it's a little more nuanced than that, but
Oh,
yeah.
is it?
Shut up. But yeah, uh, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's really unfortunate that the people that are going to lose the most of this are the actual drivers and gig workers themselves, while this is fought out by people that are much wealthier and have much more power than they do. And it allows them to not, it allows their app overlords to basically keep garnishing wages and not have to pay them minimum wage or health benefits, especially now during a pandemic when you have people that don't have anything else to do for work, having to go give those Lyft or Uber rides or go into the grocery store for Instacart and pick up groceries and put themselves in harm's way.
Right. I mean, yeah, these services are really key during, especially during the pandemic, and even and especially after too. And I think they might have been had the wool pull over their eyes of them spending $250 million to promote this thing, whereas I think you told me that the other side of it only spent about a million.
Yeah, roughly a
But
milli.
yeah, and I don't think people, including me, I mean, I always say I didn't vote on this not in California, but on the like I said, on the surface, it looks fine. It looks like it's a great thing, but if you really look
Yeah.
into it, it does hurt a lot of people. It makes the
Yeah, and you also had companies like Uber and Lyft that literally threatened to shut down operations in California when this law, AB5 law, passed, claiming that they couldn't operate. These companies don't make money anyway right now. They all lose money, and they were claiming that their business wouldn't be able to materially be able to afford that for all of their workers. Um, so yeah, AB5 was not a perfect law by any means. It's unfortunate though that this passed because a new one can't be worked out in the meantime to actually create a law that can benefit both the workers as well as the employers on the app that run the apps.
Agreed. Yeah, it's definitely doable. It's gonna take a long time to get it right, and I hope to see that it does get right in the next upcoming couple elections. I don't know if it's gonna be next one, but
Well, so what our usual terms of what's next. So I think what's next is we'll see another progressive state potentially levy a lawsuit. I'm New York or Chicago, Illinois, but being Chicago, or and maybe Seattle. I don't know if Seattle has the firepower to do it, and for the state of Washington, but you'll see other state AG's office start to take aim and potentially get a better law than AB5 passed. Um, so we'll have to see going forward, but it was a big win for the gig economy employers, not the employees, here on election day in that regard in California. But so that's what I think's coming next for that. For legal sports betting, I think we're going to continue to see even more states fall down like dominoes as they want that tax money coming into their bank accounts. And for legal pot, the exact same thing.
to the vices, man, they make the states money.
Make the states that money. Hey, IRS is some of the biggest gangsters in the world. I know that's federal level, but they tax Americans that don't even live or work in the U.S. anymore, and they will always get their money. Ask Al Capone.
It's true. They do everything but break legs.
Hey, you don't know. Those IRS agents may get a little
They don't
frisky
have to.
in the
They don't
alley.
have to.
Yeah, they don't have to. Yeah, but yeah, that's it for our ballot initiative. All right, so to wrap up, Justin, let's talk about Ant Financial's IPO crashing and burning just a few days before they were set to go out and raise their vastly oversubscribed $34 billion. So regulators in China pulled the plug on it at the last minute, took the rug out from under their feet. Jack Ma slam hit his chin, got a little dizzy and woozy because he made some controversial comments on stage with a bunch of Chinese regulators in the audience that caused them to not be on their Chinese New Year Christmas or card list. But yeah. Anyway, so it caused them to call him in for a last minute meeting. And that meeting, I guess, didn't go super well because magically all these new regulations came out over how payments have to be handled in China. And now Ant's IPO is currently TBD. What are your initial thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, from what I initially read, I mean, it wasn't all just with that last minute stuff. That really just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think they kind of knew there was going to be some regulations they would have to abide by, and it was a risky kind of deal. I mean, Ant Financial, from my understanding, is a huge part of the Chinese economy already, and would be an even bigger part if they get public. So they want to get this thing right, and I think from both sides, not just from Ant's side, but from Chinese government. So I think this is probably the right move. It's unfortunate in the short term, but I think long term this might be the correct thing. And I think you're probably going to touch on it here in a second, but I mean, there's a good chance they still go public in the next coming months, trying to get this thing correct and get the regulations either changed or abide by them in a certain way. And yet to be seen. But I think it's just a small blip in the whole thing.
I agree. I think there's no way in hell they wouldn't let IPO. Like you said, it's too big. It's too important to people that live in China, where even less physical currency is used than in the U.S. And vastly less or more physical currency is used in Italy. I still have issues dating back to my last trip there, back when travel was a thing, because no one wanted to take credit cards. But anyway, so I don't really have a strong opinion on this. It largely screams of the state, the Chinese state, telling Jack Ma, "Hey, remember still the captain. You're not the captain now. We're still the captain."
Correct. Yeah.
And that's what this screams. And also tightening up how Ant Financial has been making money in the past, and maybe not making that avenue quite so easy. But like I said, they're still going to let it IPO. What some commentary I've heard elsewhere is how that actually this action, because it was kind of seen as petty, um, could harm China, just because you're going to see people not be willing to IPO in China because of this. Because this happened on the Shanghai part, not obviously the Singapore part. That because it was a dual IPO listing, but I believe Ant pulled it from both after Jack Ma's meeting with the Chinese regulators. So I think it's one of those we're just gonna have to see how this goes going forward. But in the end, I think it was largely hey, we're still the boss, know your place kind of deal, even if he is the
Sure.
11th richest man in the world, or was going to be after the IPO. That is now dead and gone.
Oh man, you're gonna get in trouble if you start trying to sing on this podcast.
Why do you think I kept it to one line?
Yeah, no, it's definitely gonna make other companies hesitant. I don't know if they'll put a full halt, but
No,
I,
not to a full halt. We're you read on here all about the age of two internets becoming a part of the just the reality of the world of the West versus China, basically, in terms of how there
right.
are copies of every successful, especially tech firms, that in the U.S. and other Europe, other Western nations, uh, in China, and they just have a duplicate there. And the U.S. companies aren't allowed to operate in China because they don't allow the Chinese government to see what they're, the back end of everything, which is a whole nother entirely separate podcast. So no, I don't think it kills any other Chinese mega IPOs coming into the future, but I do think it's going to it is a cause for concern for other big conglomerate Chinese companies that are looking to IPO in Shanghai and Shenzhen.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it affects U.S. economy too much or us these markets, but it could be a precedent for
Not
future
yet,
stuff.
but we are talking about, Alibaba owns a significant stake in Ant Financial, and Alibaba is the Chinese Amazon, which at some, it's going to keep growing just like Amazon's going to keep growing. And whether we like it or not, we're going to become more interconnected with China unless we go into a full-on war with them. So let's pray that doesn't happen. Uh,
Knock on some wood, but
yeah, so we'll see going forward. Just kind of like what we said when Ant was prepping to IPO, but I don't think a financial services company that has a larger or would have had a larger market capitalization than J.P. Morgan can be ignored.
no, absolutely not. From both sides, yeah. I mean, China can't ignore that at all. It's going to have to be a deal, and gonna have to live with it, and kind of relinquish a little bit of power. It sounds like, but not all of it. Not that they initially would have. I don't know the terms of the deal or the regulations really too much back and forth, but I'm sure that, like you said, it was a power struggle, and it will continue to be.
Yep. And it's no different here in the US. Always a power struggle between
Always power
big
struggle.
business and the state. But yeah,
Yeah.
that wraps up the latest on Ant Financial's failed IPO. That all we got?
That's all I got, man.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. Like, rate, subscribe, review, all of it, whatever the usual saying is. We're going to see y'all next time.